Why would anyone put themselves in a position, if they choose their parents, why would they put themselves in a position where they would choose to be born into a painful environment? And I know in my case, I picked up a perception of being a victim, and it seems like I have trouble shaking it.
Well, we're going to appeal to your human logic for just a moment.
Please.
Why would a football player play football?
Okay, because they wanted to.
Yeah, but why? Have you seen those guys? Have you seen what they do to each other? So the potential of getting beat up pretty good is a sure thing. So why do they do it?
They don't know any better.
Well, is there any upside to it?
They learn. They learn not to. It hurts.
But is there any upside to it?
Money.
Maybe money. But what about focusing your physical body into greater agility? What about focusing your physical body into greater clarity? What about love of the game? What about intuitively knowing where you need to be in a certain situation? What about connecting with higher power, if you want to call it that, and accomplishing extraordinary feats? What about thrilling a crowd? What about giving crowds something to focus upon that allows their energy to flow? There are lots of upsides to it.
Oh, you're getting me now.
There are a lot of upsides to it, and Esther's sister, her little sister, who has always been taller and wiser by Esther's words than Esther, has been talking about the poop to value ratio for a long time. Poop to value. She uses different words sometimes. But meaning, is the probable negative experience worth the probable positive experience? And we're not really asking you to weigh things in those ways. We just know that when you made the decision to come into this physical experience, comfort wasn't your top priority. Understanding who you are is. We just know that when you came in, having an easy path wasn't your intention. It was figuring out how to create your path was. We know that when you came into this physical experience, just having someone be nice to you all the time so you didn't have to have any discernment of what your guidance was telling you wasn't your path. But activating a powerful guidance system was. Not one of you said, I'll come into this body, but before I get there, get everything all cleaned up so when I get there, it's nice for me. None of you said that. Every one of you said, I'll go forth into this sea of contrast, and out of it, I will come to my own conclusions of what I prefer. And all of you said, and I will never know more clearly what I do want than when I'm living some of what I don't want. And so you all chose contrast. That doesn't mean you all said, I'll go forth and have misery in order to create desire. But it did mean that you said that you would come forth and have variety in order to come to your own discernment. Sometimes, in fact often, in fact really often, as you said about yourself, you get into a victim mentality pretty early on because others around you sort of teach you that if you will please me, it will be better for you. So you start catering to those who have no real power to make anything better for you. So let's take a mother, for example, or a father, some mentor, somebody who matters to you, and let's imagine them really caring about you and making everything as easy as possible for you. And in their misguided belief that if they can just feather your nest and pave your way and make it good for you, that'll get you off on the right foot. But instead, what they teach you is to look for that in places where you're not going to find it. So you've got this feathered nest, let's say, and then this person doesn't feather your nest, and so you feel abused by that person, or that person doesn't, you feel abused by that person. And so it doesn't take very much before you begin to feel a bit like a victim. Because after all, anybody who doesn't give you what you want is abusing you in some way. Yes? Or what if in early stages your nest isn't feathered? What if you are expected to take care of yourself better? What was it for you? What happened in your experience that made you carry this feeling of victimhood forward?
You want my answer on that?
We want your perspective, yeah.
Well, I had a stepdad that beat the crap out of me.
So are you crapless now?
It's like I have that vibration, though. I can't. It's like I'm having trouble. My belief system of my vibration seems to be still clung to that.
So what he demonstrated to you was you're inappropriate, therefore you deserve this beating.
He said I was an accident. I wasn't meant to be. Nobody wanted me.
So this is what we're talking about. Instead of understanding the relationship between who you are and your inner being, who knows your value, so many people meet up with someone influential in their experience and they try to establish a relationship with that person. Now we have some questions for you. Do you ever remember believing him? Did you believe him?
No, but I wanted to please him. So
Now wait, it's good. You didn't really believe him, but he was bigger.
Oh yeah, a lot bigger.
And meaner.
And sometimes he was the only one there and I was totally at his mercy.
Yeah. So now let's talk about this just a little bit. So you desired to please him because?
So I would leave me alone.
So desired
also,
to...
I guess I saw my self-image in...
Maybe, but now you're superimposing that.
Okay.
So you didn't know about your own guidance system, although it was there. And your own guidance system, this is how your guidance system works. When you think a thought that is contrary to the thought that your inner being is thinking, you feel the discord in the form of negative emotion. So even without the beatings, when someone says to you, you're worthless or you're unimportant, the reason that that feels so awful as you consider it is because it is so contrary to what your inner being knows. But of course, at that early stage, you didn't know that that was what was happening. And this is what we want to help you to realize. So you did your best to contour your life experience to please this person, to please this unpleasable person.
To protect myself.
Yeah, but here's the question that we really want to ask you. Did you ever please him?
Oh, yeah, a couple times.
Were you able to contour your life on a consistent enough basis that you were convinced that he now saw you as worthy and valuable? Here's our question to you. Did you get from him what you needed in order to understand your value?
One time I beat somebody up and he was really pleased. He said he was proud to call me son.
So he is disconnected from who he is, and in his disconnection he fills that void through belligerence and bullying and that sort of thing.
And one time I asked him when I think I was about 12 years old, and it just seemed like it was just ridiculous. I said, why do you keep on hitting me? And he just kind of gave me an evil grin and said, because he really enjoys it.
So what do you think about that now?
I think that was then, but I still see my vibrations affected by it.
Well, it's still really active in your vibration. In other words, when you tell that story, it's as if it's happening right now. It's as if he's doing that to you right now, only he isn't. And this was a emphatic thing that happened to you. There's no question about that. We're not making light of it in any way. The most important part of this conversation was your question to us, why would anybody choose? And there's a question beneath that question, or there's a belief beneath that question that is at the heart of some other wobbles that you've got with this work that we are doing, and that is you cannot accept that you would have chosen that. You can't accept that you would have chosen that. Why would anybody choose something that is so unpleasant or something?
It seems like a heavy burden to try to change my belief system with.
For sure. Why would anyone choose that? And since words don't teach, we can't conjure enough words to soothe that. So we're going to ask you if you have any way through your own life experience to answer that question.
Oh, absolutely. I want to write. I could feel I have a sensitivity from those experiences to give me kind of a gift for expressing myself.
So you already knew the answer to a question that you just asked us. You already knew that answer. And your answer was, hey, I gained a lot. I got so I could stand up on my own 2 feet.
But I'm frozen. It seems like I still have like I'm in an invisible cage and I freeze. It's like I disassociate.
But that's because you're telling that story and holding yourself there. So let's talk about the details of what you are expressing to us. So You beat somebody up at one point. Did you feel good while you did it?
It was like I was beating up my stepdad, which I did too. But I went through 13 years of it before I was able to finally throw that monkey off my back.
All right, so are you saying that at some point along the way, you realized that beating people up or being beat up, either one of them was not something that was a vibrational match to who you are?
I always regretted it after that I went too far.
So we have another question for you that's important here. Which felt better, being beat up or beating someone up?
Being beat up felt worse.
Yeah. So now think about what we've talked about in terms of the emotional scale. How guilt feels far worse than blame. They're terrible feeling emotions in any case. But in blame, there is more control, isn't there? And in beating someone up, there's more control than in being beat up.
I felt helpless, yeah, definitely.
So you were showing yourself from where you stood. In other words, you can't get to where you want to be from any place other than from where you are. You can't be someplace other than where you are. Your navigational system 100% of the time is taking into consideration where you are. Where you were was someone who didn't understand about your guidance system, who was getting beat up on a pretty regular basis, and who really didn't like that, who was not loving yourself because somebody else wasn't loving you, and who didn't like that. And so from where you were, you couldn't jump into love, even though that was your innate soul tendency. You couldn't jump right into love. You were a little boy living in a life experience where it was coming at you and you were reacting to the experience. And that's what most people are doing, is reacting to experience. At this stage in your life, you don't need to react to that anymore, but you still are, because you've kept it active in your vibration, so you're still reacting to it. You could start telling different stories and then you wouldn't be reacting to it, but we'll get to that here in just a moment. So there you were, reacting to your experience, and then you found a way to feel a little better than being beat up. You gathered your own strength, you gathered your own resources. Can any of you feel, we're asking you especially, but we want you to weigh in on this mentally also. Can you see how, as he's being beat up on a regular basis, he's putting all kinds of desires into his vortex? Desires like, I want the world to be a nicer place, and I want this man to be a nicer man, and I want to be able to defend myself, and I want to be able to take care of myself, and I don't want to be beat up, which means I do want to have strength and so forth. Can you see how much he was putting into his vortex? So as who you are vibrationally is becoming clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer to you, can you see how life experience caused you to begin to become more and more of that?
At times, for sure.
So, do you beat people up on a regular basis now?
I'm not like that, but I do have anxiety where I could feel I got to hold myself back. In other words, it's a problem-solving technique I don't put a lot of value in, but when you see lack of options, it's one of the ones that pop in your mind.
Well, the lack of option, do you run out of physical options? In other words, so let's talk about the options that come forth from only a physical standpoint. So I'm this little kid and I'm getting beat up, and the option is not to be beat up or to beat somebody else up or to beat the big one up. The option is to get beat up. That's the option. I don't have the option to beat him up. That's not going to happen. So now what are my options? To get beat up or to run and hide, or to get beat up or to contour my behavior so that I don't get beat up as often.
I was never able to run and hide. I could freeze. I could try to not pretend I wasn't there.
We want you to follow us philosophically and conceptually, because even in talking about this, it activates what happened to you so that you're going right back there. It's all right. We just want you to stay with us just a little bit. So in the beginning, your options were fewer because you were too little to beat anybody else up. And so you got beat up. So then your options were, you could get beat up, or you could contour from whatever your very young rational mind told you, and you could be as good as this person wanted you to be so that you didn't get beat up. But the beatings never stopped, did they? Because you can't stand on your head in enough different ways.
If he was in a bad mood, I was a victim.
And so through life experience, you came to realize that is not an option. You just can't get to where you want to be from there. And so through life experience, after a little while, you attract someone like us who begins to tell you that there is a power, there's an energy that creates worlds, that if you do the work vibrationally, you won't be in the position where you have to do the less powerful work of taking action.